Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Night Live again, brought to you by CrowCast. Tons again to talk about this week, and probably the bye couldn't come soon enough for most of us. We all need to take a bit of a break. So joining me tonight is our usual crew. We've got Donkey. How you going, Donkey?
Yeah, I'm very, very well. Did some labyrinth training today, so I'm
excellent.
My mechanism's been reset.
Oh, I missed that one. I should have bloody put that in the title, actually. Damn it. Macca, how you going, mate?
Nah, very good. Plenty to talk about tonight.
Very good. And Pete, how you going, Peter?
Well, I'm going really well because I normally set myself up with a bevy to do this podcast, and I poured a stubby into my glass and realised that it's actually a much bigger glass than I thought, and it looked to me as though it actually had room for two stubbies in it. And so you know what I did? I poured two stubbies in it. So I'm happy now. I've got a very full beer glass with two stubbies in it. I'm ready to roll.
He's on a double stubby night. This is fantastic.
Not only has he cleared the mechanism, he's resetting it.
I think he's probably really well balanced on a cellular level now.
That's right.
You're staggered, aren't you, Doggy? You gargle your throat with that much.
Pete's going to be staggered later. Anyway, without further ado, and
moving along.
G'day to everyone in the chat. Thanks for joining us again. Let's get into some Crows news, shall we? What do we got this week?
Jesus, where would you want to start? I mean, there's been barely any other teams in the news other than our beloved Crows, and so you could start anywhere. And I don't know. I think that maybe we could start with a bit of good news. Richard Douglas signed on through the week, so that was a good thing. Well documented. He's not my favourite player at the club, but absolutely respect him as the best 22 player and an integral part of our team. And so good to see that Dougie signed on for another year, and it was thoroughly deserved. He's had a good year. So that was some good news. I think, though, probably we've been dominated, obviously, by negative news, and we did have a chat about this through the week that we didn't want this podcast to turn into a great big, negative thing on the Crows. It wasn't that one, but at least just considering the the letter that was issued by the CEO today, and as you know, all the members got a letter from Andrew Fagan, and pretty much just noting that life is tough in the AFL, and that there's some the bye is being used to review some of our practices and procedures, for want of a better term, and to try and reset for the rest of the year. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, and did you see the letter?
Yeah, I've been trying to read between the lines, because you don't expect Andrew to come out and say exactly how it is, because that wouldn't be pertinent for him to do so. But it's always what's not said, or if you try and read between the lines. And I think probably the thing that I'd take out of Andrew's message more than anything else is that the club is well aware of the unrest amongst the supporter base, and obviously keenly aware of the scrutiny in the media. So if nothing else, I guess they're not living in a bubble. I guess what they do about it is probably the issue that wasn't addressed in the thing, but you wouldn't expect them to come out and say that sort of stuff anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you, Fiend. I read the essence that I pulled out of that was, they identified the issues we're all talking about, so they weren't just. It wasn't just an email that said, "Oh, we've had a couple of unlucky injuries. It's been, really weird, and we're going to hit the back half of the season and go for the flag." So it wasn't a tone deaf email. It didn't really give us much, but it wasn't a tone deaf email at least.
Yeah, I've only got one comment to make on it, and the fact that it talks about reviewing our practices. I thought that our original captain McDermott, who was talking on the TV today, he's saying we should be reviewing all the people that we've got there, right, from bottom up, right up to the chair. And I think you won't get a proper review of the operations unless you do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think The problem has always been with the Adelaide Footy Club that it's very hard as a membership base to actually elicit change. We're very reliant on the club to be self-regulating simply because of the way the board's structured and the voting mechanism is structured and all that sort of stuff. So, whilst some people can be critical about all the hoo-ha on social media and in the press and even, in this podcast, there's not as a membership base, there's not much else we can do to signal to the club that we're not happy. And as shareholders of the club, we've got a right to signal that we're not happy. Short of getting a more representative people on the board as member representatives rather than ex-players, there's not a hell of a lot else we can do. We're never going to not fill the stadium. I can't imagine a situation where we would not get, our regulation 40 to 45,000 in the stadium. So bums on seats is never going to be a way to signal. It's got to be through other sources. And for mine, at least the indications are through Fagan's email that we've been heard to a degree.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think you're right. We had the situation a few years ago where Richmond went through a whole lot of trauma, and there were membership blocks that had board members ready to roll with the existing board, and there was a whole lot of drama, and that can be unedifying. And I think that we are set up, our internal structure is set up to avoid that kind of thing. But with that said, it certainly it caused Richmond to, directly or indirectly, cause Richmond to turn around, and we simply don't have a situation where a whole lot of people and whether it's with money or whatever, to go and get half a dozen powerful people to say, right, okay, we're going to muscle in here because there's nothing going on. Excuse me, again, sorry. We just can't do that. We don't have that. We have mechanisms, sorry to use that term, built into our board structure, which don't allow it. And the only representative that we get is the members' representative on the board, and funnily enough, that's taken up by Rod Jamieson. So, it's difficult, and I tend to agree with you, Dean, that some of that stuff has been pretty ordinary, but we're not a club that is easy to be heard. That's for sure.
Mm. Yeah, and like you said it before, Pete, it's not our desire to agitate and to be negative and all that, but I would losing my words here. I would challenge any member to be satisfied with what's gone on in the first 6 months of this season after such a near miss after the 27 grand final. You felt like there wasn't much missing. You felt like the signing of Bryce just added that little bit of class to our midfield. Yes, we lost Jake, but Tom has really stood up in the first half of the season and was has proven himself to be more than able in terms of a replacement. And it's so disappointing from a supporter base to see that the whole thing implode, because without that injury run at the beginning of the season and the domino effect that's had, it's quite likely that we'd be contending again. And yet here we are, likely missing the finals, and all these rumours of player unrest and all the rest of it. Even if a third of it is true, it's so disappointing after being in such a good position right in the smack bang in the middle of our premiership window. So we are going to talk about it on the cast because we're supporters that want to see our team succeed. And I guess from my perspective, I feel for the players because this is their career, and for many it would have been their one and only shot at premiership glory. We support the club for our lives, so that's a 30, 40, 50-year time span. That they've got a finite amount of time to achieve that. and I feel like the club has let them down. So we're here supporting the players, but we're not going to shy away from issues when they arise.
Well, there is a major issue, isn't there? Because the whole season's been wrecked by injuries, and if they were all collision injuries, we'd say, well, you know, black cat, bad luck, witch's curse, all that sort of stuff. But it's unfortunately, you know, the majority of it has been self-inflicted and by the experimental programs. And you know, from my point of view, I just can't get out of my mind that those people have to go. And that's not. I'm not trying to be negative, but if you any business that where the people who are managing that business destroy the business, you always get the bullet. And if we are going to be regarded as a professional outfit, we do have to get rid of the people that have made these decisions and inflicted this, and just keep on and just kept on doing it in spite of the fact that it kept on occurring.
I reckon there's a question I just want to throw to all three of you. I think it's a really good opportunity, I think, for those of us who love the football club to, we're at the bye, we're at 6-7. I reckon it's a really good opportunity, and I don't know whether you want to classify this as news feed, but it's a really good opportunity to have a little bit of a look at the strategic direction, I think, of given where we sit at 6-7. And, you know, we've got... we are building a really, really significant war chest of draft picks in an SA-heavy talent draft. And we've still got a lot of good players on our list. And I think there's a lot still to be positive about. I think, personally, 2018 is gone. And I think that our really, really difficult fixture over the next few weeks will see to that. We won't get it. We talk about players coming back after the bye. That's great. But when you're getting players back who haven't played football for 6, 7, 8 weeks, they're going to need 3 or 4 weeks to be back into tip-top form, and we're going to be savaged by then, I think, the fixture. So I see us finishing out of the 8, and I'm that's just how it is, and I've accepted that. And so what I'm really keen to put out there now for you guys is to think about, well, are we in a position where, the coaching staff and players will just go out and try and win every game they can. Of course they will. And maybe that gets us, by a miracle, it would have to be to get to 8th spot. But more likely down to, 12th, 13th, 14th. But some super talent in the SA draft. We've already got our own first. We've got Melbourne's first. We've got Carlton's second, which will be a high, in effect, a top 20 pick. We've got next year's first, and we've got the potential of Rory Sloane going, which could be, again, a low first. And we've got the potential of Mitch McGovern going. Could be, 1 or 2 firsts.
Lynch.
We've got Tom Lynch not signed. And I just wonder, we've talked, I'm not meaning to go off track here, but we've talked over the last couple of years about this playing group, about the fragility of this playing group, and that fragility which has shown up on, a number of occasions in really important matches. And I'm just wondering, it almost feels to me like we can almost do, by keeping a couple of, good experienced players as well, we can almost do like a little bit of a mini rebuild on the fly. And if some of those kids that come in are really, talented players, then we've still got some good talent that's just starting to shine through as well. I just wonder, what do you think of, we finished 13-14, we reset, we hit the draft, some top SA talent. We lose some players that are in that 27, 28, 29-year-old bracket. Is it possible that we then have a hit in 2019? There you go.
What do you think, Donkey?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an eternal optimist, and I think our draw sort of sets us up in a way where we can sort of have a foot in both camps for a couple of weeks. So our next 3 games are the Eagles, the Tigers away, and the Cats at home. They're three of the tougher games that we've got coming up. There's still some other tough ones, but they're 3 of the tougher, probably the 3 toughest out of the rest of our draw. I think we can have a red-hot crack at those 3. if we do manage to get a couple of wins, and from there, if we do get some players back, I think we can load up for the finals. And I do think that if we make the finals, we're actually still alive, as we'll get players back, and we should be firing by then. In saying that, I wouldn't put a lot of money on that being the outcome. And if we do lose those three, I think we pack up our bat and ball and go home, and we let players rest and recover as much as they need to for the rest of the season. Maybe blood as many people just to find out what talent we do actually have on the list, and I think we go for a full reload, like what Pete's saying. I tend to agree with him. I think that this draft is sort of like it's almost becoming like a perfect storm for the Crows. We seem to be getting a lot of really high early picks. There's a lot of really good SA talent. Not that that's the be all and end all, but I think it's good for us to pump a little bit more SA talent into the side. And I think we're going to bounce back pretty hard in 2019. The list is still there for the most part. We've got some really good players. We've already know how to play good football. I think that we're in a spot where we could do both things and we could do them both well. But I think the next three games will determine which end of the strategy we head towards.
What do you reckon, Macca?
Yeah. Well, the way I saw it, unfortunately, this was meant to be our, and it could well be the final year of the window being open. I thought this was our perfect year to go top, and it's all been ruined, totally ruined. I think Pete's got something there, but you have to really think about the ramifications of it all, in the sense that going down that particular path, I would say that you would, if you're going to go down that path, and there is a lot to be said for it, by the way, but it's basically doing a rebuild, not for perhaps 2019, but a rebuild for about 2020, 2021, because you're going to lose, if we lose Sloan, if we lose Lynch, and we get good draft picks for those, but I think we must keep McGovern because he's young. The other two, they're getting towards the back end of their career. The other thing, but where it breaks down in what you were saying, Pete, and I totally agree with and it may well be the way to go, but where it breaks down for a premiership in 2019 is that Tex is a year older, Eddie's a year older. And maybe those players have got it in for another year to do it well. But I don't know. It's probably the way to go, but I don't know that we'd get a premiership in 2019. I think you'd be looking more like 2 or 3 years down the track.
I reckon.
Dean, you're the list manager. What do you think?
The list manager. Well, I mean, there's a couple of facts around my opinion. It can't be denied that the sanctions that we got a few years ago have left a bit of a hole in the middle of our list from an age profile point of view. And whilst we've tried to draft in and around that, I would suggest that's the weakest part of our list. That 24 to 27 age group. Look, I think what the club does over the next 6 weeks is going to be really indicative of what their main objective is, because if their main objective is to maintain a balance sheet and to continue to, foster hope, then they will continue to aim towards trying to make finals this season. If their primary focus is on building a premiership-winning squad, then I think some hard decisions need to be made over the next over this bye period. To be honest with you, I think it's obvious that our fitness department needs an overhaul. I think it's also obvious that our assistant coaching panel needs an overhaul. I don't know whether Pike necessarily sees the importance of a quality assistant coaching panel, but I think history has shown that having one or two really strong assistant coaches in prime positions is helpful. You only have to look at who's sprung out of the Hawthorn system to see the truth in that. But more importantly, Pete, as to what you were saying about our list management situation, you cannot ignore the amount of SA talent in this draft. And it's not just kids that are okay. We're talking about some really quality picks. You know, we're talking about Lukosius probably going top 3. We're talking about Isaac Rankin and, a couple of others as well.
Haley.
And Haitley is the other one. Yep. And Lukosius and Rankin are blokes a bit like Fogarty that you could come in. You could expect them to come in and have an impact reasonably early in their AFL careers, particularly
and Jackson Haitley as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jackson Haitley as well. Jackson Haitley as well. They're all playing sand footy. They're all playing league football.
Exactly. So, whilst it may undermine our push in 2019, I think that taking advantage of those guys being in the draft this year would mean that the bounce would be reasonably quickly. We've seen other teams do it. We've seen West Coast bottom out and bounce really quickly. We've seen Hawthorn do it as well. And
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah,
and look, no one would suggest that we tank, but I think it's going to take, like, given the mess that was our pre-season in terms of a fitness perspective, forget about collective minds, but let's look at the primary issue of our injuries, and it was clearly our pre-season tactics or strategy that messed that up because they overloaded the players. It's going to take more than one pre-season to fix that, and I would think that at this point of 2018, it's pertinent to essentially look to 2019 from an injury and fitness management perspective. And if there are guys like Riley Knight, for example, that need that longer recuperation and a longer program to get them cherry right for 2019, I think we need to be realistic about where we sit and understand that those players coming back, just because they're back doesn't mean they're going to be informed, doesn't mean they're still going to be fully fit. We might sneak into the 8, but for what purpose? To mine, the only reason to sneak into the 8 is to keep bums on seats. And I would much rather see the club take a broader view and a longer-term view, basically clear the slate, use the second half of the year to sort out who you want to keep, go to the blokes that are out of contract and say, look, this is going to be our direction. If you want to be part of it, that's great. Or we don't see you being a part of it, that's fine. Get the list management shit sorted out. Do it in an authentic manner that allows blokes to make decisions about their own careers, and go as hard as we can with what we left with in the draft, which could, as you said, Pete, could be 3, could even be 4 or 5 first-round picks, depending on what happens with a couple of blokes, and make sure that we jag those SA players. We're assisted by the fact that Port are likely to finish in the top 6. So in terms of their draft plans, that's going to make it difficult for them. I think it's realistic for the club to look at what's available, to look at our current list and to be realistic and to say, all right, well, this is where we're at. We messed up this premiership window. We need to look forward and make sure we bring some quality, low-risk kids on board and get on with it for 2019. That's what I would be doing.
Yeah, and low risk from a flight risk
perspective,
but also
yeah.
Low risk from a 200 game point of view as well. I mean, these kids are not just, we're not just looking at these kids and say, well, who's the best of these, this and the Victorian kid, and should we keep, the South Australian kid? These are stars. They're talking, draft watchers are talking Lukosius as being a once in a generation player.
Yeah. Yep.
And if they come out of this year with a Fogarty-led next 10 years, well, I'm on board. I'm renewing that membership, and to be honest, I couldn't care less if we only won. I think that we've still got I'm following the chat all you guys, and there's been some really good points made just while we're chatting away. I can't remember who said it, but I think, we'll still easily win 9 or 10 games next year. We'll still challenge probably for a top 8 spot next year.
Yep. We have some really good kids. We have some really good kids. They just need games. What we also have, though, is some ageing stars and some middle-rung players that are not performing, that can easily be moved on. And
have never performed.
No,
we
they
just
don't
re-signed Douglas.
Well, one in particular, bloody Atkins.
Well, yeah, there's a few like Rory around, and you look at Kirtley Hampton, it looks like his card's stamped for whatever reason. There's some players on there that don't need to be there, and like you said, Pete, what would we rather do? Would we rather let these SA kids in the draft go to Victorian clubs or interstate clubs, and then have to pay a mozza to try and get them back down the track?
Well, it never works anyway, Fane. I mean,
no, it doesn't.
I always read that. I always think, don't worry, we'll get him back from Carlton in 2 years. Never happens.
No, it doesn't, because they get entrenched in the system, and they enjoy the system.
They make friends.
Exactly. Get a girlfriend, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's realistic for the club to be very pragmatic. If you look at it from pragmatic point of view, it's going to cost us less money, and it gives us a list that contains less flight risk. We pick up 2 or 3 SA guys. We've already got Wayne Miller on top of that. We've got Lockie Murphy on top of that. We've got Darcy Fogarty on top of that. All of a sudden, Galucci's a Victorian, but in terms of the South Australians, all of a sudden we're back up to a third of our list being local, and they're all quality kids and good core players. So and that I think would help our club from a cultural perspective as well. So that in answer to your question, I think we should throw the squad around, have a look at some of these youngsters, make some early calls on players so that we can start negotiating with managers, put some blokes out to surgery or pasture or whatever, and reset the squad. I don't think this squad's going to win us a flag.
No, I actually agree. And in fact, Pete beat me to it. I was going to raise that very same point that he did, whether this would be a practical way for us to approach the balance of the season, with accepting that we're not going to win a flag this year, and setting ourselves into a position where we can make a different structure that is likely to get one.
I just love the fact that 3 of those guys, and actually all 4 of them, I think I'm pretty sure Rosie's now playing league football, but all 4 of them are playing league football.
Yeah.
And so, they'll have a full season of SNFL football. And so, they're all 4 of them are draft picks that you can bring into the club and expect them to play games next year, realistically.
Yeah. I don't think there's any more to add to that, Pete. I think, and Donkey, don't for 1 minute think that we're not optimists either. I don't see what purpose it serves to sneak into the 8, apart from maybe beating Port in a home final just to piss them off. But I'd much rather finish 4 or 5 places under Port this season and take advantage of the spoils at draft time, to be honest.
Yeah, no, look, I'm probably more. I actually think that if we crack the 8, then with enough people back, then we're a shot for the flag. That's actually where I sit.
That's a big call.
Yeah, like if we've got our squad back and we're in the 8, I think we're a chance. Especially after a bit of. Because by then, the journey of where we would have got to would be huge, and we'd have a lot of momentum, and our guys would be fit. But just the fact that we just dropped bets for another 4 weeks tonight just shows you that
not going to happen.
That happening is probably a little ways away.
And that leads, I guess, Pete, to the second half of this conversation. We're talking about on-field players, but I mean, Betts has gone down with a hamstring, and they've identified it as tendonitis again, or a strain to the tendon.
Yeah, to avoid saying the word hamstring. Yeah.
No, but the thing is, Macca, that these tendon injuries are overwork, overuse injuries. You don't get tendon injuries the same way as you get a strained hamstring or a tear in the hamstring. Tendonitis is overworked. They've completely rogered this, and I think part of getting the playing squad back on side is showing them that the club is serious about their own health and well-being in terms of being able to play at an elite level. And surely as a playing group, you wouldn't have confidence in the fitness staff at the moment. You just wouldn't have confidence.
Hey, Fian, let me put this to you, just as an interesting question. And you know my background and you know why I'd be asking this question, but what do you think about the potential for litigation arising out of this?
Oh, well...
It would be, or Donkey, anyone that wants to comment on that?
It'd be unprecedented. I don't think anyone's ever taken anyone to court on the back of you butchered my chance at a flag. But surely,
no. But these guys they'd be losing, game payments. They'd be losing money.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, we've seen issues surrounding season or career-ending injuries, like Rennie and a couple of others have taken the AFL to court from that perspective. I guess there's a case, but I think
it'd be very hard to prove, though. It really would be a hard case to pin right down where a judge would say, "Well, yeah, it was because of that." The club.
I'll tell you what, it'd be a class action, though, wouldn't it?
Oh God!
Yeah. Well, it would be after that. Yeah, I just couldn't see it succeeding because otherwise. The AFL would be just riddled with claims like that.
But what it does highlight, Pete, is that even if they couldn't bloody launch class action or whatever, what it does say is that players would be pissed off, and pissed off players don't want to stick around. And the club needs to make some calls on this fitness regime. I mean, I've heard from a source that has connections with that department, saying things like, players have been told not to participate in sections of the current training program. If once you get to the point where the playing group are not confident in the fitness regime and the strength and conditioning regime and are actively working against the directives of blokes like Matt Haas and co, you may as well chuck it out. And a really strong club, Pete, and this Betts injury is the icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. A strong club would use this mid-season break to go, you know what, our strength and conditioning people have not worked. We need to clear out that department. We need to get a new regime in to manage the players through the rest of the season and prepare them for 2019. It won't happen, but that's what should happen.
Interesting.
I agree with that. That is what should happen, but it won't. Our only hope is that there is a proper review of personnel and that they get the people for next year that can actually do the job properly. I mean, it is not an impossible job to do. Other clubs can do it.
Yeah, and I think what Paul from the chat has said is quite pertinent, and I've also heard this at the various AA meetings I attend, is the first thing you do is you've got to admit you've got a problem. So,
when's that going to happen, Donk?
Oh, no, I just go for the free biscuits. But,
and the chips. I know you like your chips.
I love it.
It's true, though, isn't it? And a strong organisation, whether it be in the corporate world or in the sporting environment, you need to be able to admit when you've messed up. And the Adelaide Football Club, for whatever reason, and we can speculate, but the bottom line is that they've messed up. They need to fess up and fix it. I was watching the England World Cup match last night, Pete, and a lot of the commentary around that was about on SBS, so I could actually watch it and not just watch a buffering message. But a lot of the commentary was around Southgate, their new coach, and now this guy isn't as celebrated as some of the previous England coaches. But they mentioned that what he's done in terms of this particular World Cup campaign is he's opened up the English squad quite substantially. So previously, the English squad was very close, very similar. What they were describing was very similar to the Adelaide Football Club. Very close, very insular, no media access, and as a consequence, a lot of pressure placed on that group to perform, because obviously England have high expectations at World Cup time. Southgate has opened up the squad. They've become far more accessible to the media. They've become quite open in terms of their interactions with the public. And as a consequence, and I found this very pertinent to what many describe as a fishbowl environment in Adelaide, what it's done is it's humanised the players to the public. So no longer are people viewing the players as just instruments to a flag. They're now identifying with the players as human beings. And so the overall vibe in England this time around is more supportive and less focused on expectation. And I found that really resonated with me, because I thought, you know what, that's exactly what Adelaide have done. They have put themselves in a bubble. They've pushed away all the media. They've given generic information to the public and to the membership. And as a consequence, they've opened the floodgates to speculation. They've opened the floodgates to expectation. And they've dehumanised the players, because all we get is generic sound bites. And I really feel that Andrew Fagan and the board need to have a look at what's happened with the English World Cup squad this time around, and the impact that that's had on the English squad and also the English public in terms of the pressure and the expectation that they've put on the squad. I think it's very relevant, and I think the Adelaide Football Club need to revisit how they've positioned themselves in that space.
I think it's a great point you made there, Fiend.
Yeah, outstanding point. And Gareth Southgate, outstanding footballer in his own right and highly respected. And I think that they've done well to avoid the razzle dazzle of big name, European / South American coaches or managers. And Gareth Southgate, homegrown centre half. I don't remember who he played for. Gareth Southgate. Oof, can't remember.
I know he coached Crystal Palace, didn't he?
He was a real, played centre half for England in the internationals, and he's just a real good sort of homegrown old boy. So he's good. Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess time will tell, Pete, won't it? In terms of, I suspect that what's going to happen is that we're going to make a push for the flag. We're not going to turn over staff, and we'll probably take whatever we can get at the draft. And I guess from a supporter's point of view, that'll be a bit disappointing.
I think that I think that I really do think they've got a pretty strong eye on that draft. And they'd be crazy if they didn't. I reckon that they'd be positioning themselves. I think Hamish. We all know that you can remove every other part of the Adelaide Football Club, but you cannot touch Hamish. And I would be very, very surprised if Hamish is not all over those kids.
Oh, no doubt about that. But do you get the impression too that possibly by the opposite, presuming that what has been said and published is right, that Lynch is being offered such low numbers to either get him for a bargain or deliberately piss him off to get a draft pick?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're looking at how they can best manage their attack on that draft, and whether there are players that they think are expendable, and for all we know, we know that Mick Malthouse used to make a call on guys' finals performances, and maybe Pike's done the same. Who knows? But I'd be very surprised if they weren't doing everything they could to hit that draft pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting. Yeah. I think it's it'll be great. It'll be like waking up on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Well, it will be. It will be, but Kevin Bloody Wilson made a song up about Christmas Day, and it had something to do with the bike. And if we don't get if we don't get the bike, then
well, where's me heaven bike?
Yeah.
Anyway, Fane, shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we have a look at wrap it up and have a look at some games?
Yeah. Well, just the last bit of injury news. Of course, Riley O'Brien out for the season, opting for surgery on that shoulder. So Source soldiers on unless they want to get creative, which is probably not going to happen.
Who was that?
Riley O'Brien.
Yep.
So that's him done and dusted.
PJ Crows, there is absolutely no issue about whether we're tanking or not. We don't need to tank. There's nothing like that. All we have to do is look at the players that we've got that we can put out in the park and look at the fixture that we've got in the second half of the year, and that will take care of itself.
Yeah, we're going to do it really shadowy way. We're just going to give Matt Haas and Brett Burton more control of the list over the next 6 weeks, and we'll just really lock in that top 4 pick.
Does anybody think we're going to beat Richmond the MCG? Does anyone think we're going to beat Richmond the MCG?
Well, we can't play the MC. It's hang on. Let's just play the match talk thing, and we'll talk about Hawthorn, and that can dovetail into Richmond and anything else. Because why not? Here we go. We didn't fucking run, did we, against Hawthorn? We hardly walked. Rory Atkins ran 14.2 kilometres, but only got 12 touches.
I was at the Alma 22 cans of Guinness watching the soccer. So I had half an. It was a cold. I had half an hour watching, I should say half an hour watching the Crows, but really wasn't that interested because you know what? I had 2 TVs side by side. I had. On one side, I had 11 guys who were absolutely giving their heart and soul, who were totally mismatched on ability and absolutely outclassed at every point. And they were just giving their absolute heart and soul for their jumper. And then on the right-hand side, I had another game where there was a whole lot of guys that just didn't give a shit. So it wasn't a hard choice for the eye to keep wandering left.
Yeah, you've got to say that third quarter was absolutely disgusting. In particular, you raised a really good point there, Pete. You can be mismatched in terms of ability, but you can actually outmatch your opposition in terms of effort. We were not only mismatched in terms of ability, we were absolutely thrashed in terms of effort. We're down on tackles, down on hard ball gets. That just shows how, the input that the players put in.
Yeah, when your effort stats are down, tackles, contested possessions, that sort of stuff, then you can just, that the team is bereft of confidence and not really playing for each other anymore, and that's probably the biggest worry for mine is that they're not playing for each other or the coach anymore. We had... and notwithstanding that, I felt like there was a couple of really poor selection choices. We didn't really make any effort to replace Lairdy and Brown down back. We had no run from the back half, and we were relying on blokes like Hardigan and Kelly and such to generate our forward thrust from the back half. And it's no wonder that Hawthorn were able to pen us in because those blokes are never going to be aggressive with their disposal, and nor should they be. Where the bloody hell was Curtly Hampton?
I just don't know why he doesn't get a game in our current situation. That makes no sense to me. He's a guy that gives effort. I mean, you criticise him in other areas maybe, I don't know. But the games he has played at that level, at least, he always shines in one area, and that is in effort.
Well, he let us in... when he had that run of games earlier on, he led us in. I think it's contested possessions that he led us in, and he was pretty close on tackles as well. He had 23 touches and 12 tackles for this in a disgusting SANFL loss last week. Why isn't this guy getting a run? I don't understand. We were looking for a distributor off halfback, and we dropped Lockie Murphy for pace, and our back six, even with the inclusion of DMAC, who isn't really a distributor, we had no one back there to actually distribute the ball and get our transition going, and Hawthorn were just able to press up and lock us in and wait for a turnover.
Yep. To me, it's mystifying. I would have certainly had him in before Paholke, for example.
Yeah, it baffles the mind. He should have played in the Melbourne game at his hometown as well, I think, just as a bit of a spiritual thing. And sitting there with two crying toddlers during the day, it would have been nice to see someone actually care that they had the jumper on. I didn't get to watch the game because it was Supercar weekend, and I was very drunk. And I
can't believe that.
Yeah, no, it happened. It happened, Macca. So I watched the highlight video the other day, and the 5-minute highlight video. I got about a minute 40 through it without wanting to tear my eyes out. And I did look like Sauce had a good little early patch, but apparently he died in the bum afterwards. But I didn't see one clearance from the Crows from a stoppage, or I didn't see
wasn't
any
18
tackling.
1 at one stage?
18-1.
Hawthorn got 16 straight at the beginning of the third quarter, or 12 straight.
I thought it was
or something
14.
like that. Something
14
like that.
straight, I think
It was some ridiculous number.
It was
Stupid.
14 straight and 18-1.
And the worrying thing for me, if you look at our season as a whole, right from the start, the round one loss to Essendon, you can sort of write off as well. Might have been a bit underdone. We're coming off a shorter preseason, all that sort of stuff. But we're in the game until we gave up at three-quarter time. Maybe we just didn't have the legs. Round two, we pull out an absolute champion win. A side that really wanted to show what they were made of, showed that, they had some internal steel and a really great performance. We lost Matt Crouch in the second quarter or 20 minutes in, whenever it was. There was some real fight and spirit. The St Kilda game was a write-off. Then we didn't turn up for the first time against the Pies. And what I've noticed with our losses is that we've gone from having, like the one goal, last 20 seconds lost to Port, to probably lucky it was raining against the Doggies. And then, a good effort against GWS, but probably we just weren't there, to a really pathetic effort against Freo, and the Melbourne game's in there too, a really pathetic effort against Hawthorn. There's just a lot of pathetic efforts coming now. There's not a lot of good stuff happening anymore. There's not a lot you can point to where you say, Crows have, the Crows have got a twinkle in the eye and there's a little bit there, but it's all dead. They can't hit a pass between each other. We can't get a clearance. We don't lay a tackle. Can't take a mark up forward. It's just
whatever happened. I'm not going to get back into CM, but from the moment we played Melbourne away, the players have checked out.
Yeah,
that much is clear.
Yeah. I was going to say
they've checked out,
irrespective of what the cause was. we were fighting in this season until that game. That I mean, yes, we had a poor loss against Collingwood, but you could put that down to a pretty strong Collingwood midfield up against a pretty green Adelaide midfield. But that Melbourne game, that was a disaster. And, let's not even dwell on maybe the reasons why, other than to say that there has to be a reason why. We were insipid against Melbourne. We were hardly in the game against second to bottom Fremantle or third to bottom Fremantle without some of their guns playing. We did try against GWS, but we were outmatched, and then we just threw in the towel against Hawthorn. We like two specific stats, and I'll harp on it again. Rory Atkins running 14 kilometres for 12 possessions. That's a lot of running where you shouldn't be running. And Richie Douglas signs a contract extension for the season during the week, and then comes out and does not take a mark for the whole game, not one mark. We're in a game where we're chipping the ball around trying to get through a Hawthorn press. That tells me that Richie Douglas didn't run. Because there's no way that a midfielder cannot take one mark from a 20-metre Matt Crouch bloody pass or a Jake Kelly pass for the whole match if he's running. That's just, you're not working for your teammates if you're pulling up those sort of stats.
It's very hard to argue with those. I mean, Atkins, one of the worst. He's got talent, but he's got no heart. He's got no guts. He's unfortunately, I think he's a disease that can easily spread to the other players. That's unfortunate. I don't think we can't afford to play him, in my opinion.
Miles in the chat, I agree. I am ready. I am ready for what this next few weeks are going to throw up. And if we look towards the West Coast Eagles game after the bye, I am ready for that. And Eddie Betts now out for 4 weeks. I am just having a great big picture of Luco in my mind, and that's who I'm thinking about. That's how I'm going to get past all this.
Sorry, what was the miss? How are you going to get past?
Thinking about Luco, Lukosius.
Oh, okay. But what? Yeah, when you, just for curiosity, I was reading about him today, and the list manager, he says that there are 6 other lads that equally could be number 1 pick along with him. Is that reality, or is that just hope?
Just you know what? Just do what you got to do to get pick 1,
and just take him.
Yep. Just get him. That's it. Him and Fogarty. That's 10 years.
Yep.
Of joy.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Anyway, sorry, I know we've talked about that. So I am. All I meant to say was I am ready for the West Coast game because we will get pulverised against West Coast. Betts won't be playing. We'll have underdone players coming back. It'll just be a mess.
Yeah, you just can't. I mean, West Coast are going pretty well, notwithstanding their loss to Sydney, and
they play the Oval well. They play the Oval.
They do.
Well.
They do. They haven't forgotten how to play Subiaco, and that's what Adelaide Oval is basically, just not quite as long. You just, I mean, shit. We could win the next 3, and this conversation would be different. But as it stands right now, with the players available right now, and let's not forget that, they brought Tex back early, and he's looked terribly unfit. Sloaney has had a foot injury, so you can't imagine that he's been training the house down, because the only thing that he can do with that is basically rest it. So he's not going to be fit. We're not going to be getting the gut running that you normally associate with Sloaney, and you can imagine that whoever we're playing when he comes back, they're just going to sit on him because they can. But it's the middle tier of Crows that are struggling the most, and we've run poor old CUI and Huey Greenwood into the ground because they've carried all that work inside the contest for half a season. They're less than 30 game players, for goodness sakes. We shouldn't be relying on our engine room for 2 30 game players, and it's little wonder that Hugh Greenwood's run out of steam. It's little wonder that Ellis Yeoman has run out of steam.
Yeah, can't blame them.
Nope, not at all. Not for 1 second. It's the senior guys. It's blokes like Richard Douglas, who obviously turn it on and turn it off, and depending on where the mood is. And Richie obviously signed on the dotted line and thought he didn't need to clock in last Saturday night.
Richard Douglas is a player who is a very, very consistent player, generally speaking. He has had a very, very consistent career of your 15 to 20 possessions in a goal. Now, what happens with Dougie is that Dougie just stays in a straight line. It's everybody else around him that goes up and down.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that in a really, really good season, when you get like last year, nobody really notices him, okay? Because you've got Matt Crouch going All Australian, getting the best and fairest, and you've got all these great things going on. When you're having a shit year, like the year that he won the best and fairest, he's noticeable as having had a good year. Yeah, so Dougie doesn't actually change. He does not change. It's everybody else that changes around him, and you can bet your bottom dollar that he will be high up in the best and fairest this year.
You put a smile on my face there, Pete. You're right. I mean, it's sad, isn't it?
Well, I remember.
He said he just plays average and he can look really good and then all bad depending on what the others do.
Well, I remember pulling up a stat earlier in the season on Douglas that he's only had about half a dozen 30 possession plus games in his whole career.
Yeah, he's a 15 to 20.
Yep. Yeah, it's just, and we've got a couple of them. David McKay is another. Everyone shit cans DMAC, and we've all said there's no doubting his effort and all the rest of it, but he's just not an AFL player. All he is a wingman. If we played him on the wing, we'd probably get good service out of him. But we're playing him off half back. He's not strong enough. And a bloke like that should be easily overtaken in a quality list, but we continue to play him. And we play him at the expense of blokes that should be playing off halfback, like Wayne Miller or even Paddy Wilson last week. Why did we put Paddy Wilson at half forward? He's never fucking played there in his life.
I could not understand that.
Hey, Don, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Isaac Rankin, what's going on? What do you know?
No.
Come on, what do you know? Come on,
no, it's really, really, really bad, deep personal issues. He should slide right down the draft.
Right, okay. I thought you might have something genuine there.
No, sorry, I did. You must have missed the wink.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. You've missed the wink in there. Yeah, really deep personal issues.
Just on Dougie and McKay, every team, and we'll put it this way, no team has 22 stars. So I've got no problem with Dougie and McKay being in the team and with the efforts they're giving. If they're your 21st, your 22nd player, or your 18th or 19th, but unfortunately, they're not. They're up much higher than that. So that's why we're going so poorly.
Anyway, we won't win against West Coast, and we certainly won't win against Richmond at the MCG, and we certainly won't beat GWS at Spotless as they continue on their resurgence towards probably a top 6 spot, I suspect. I don't think they'll lose a whole lot more games this year now that they've got players back and they're up and running. So anyway, that's my take.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk a bit more about the West Coast game next week after the bye, but I'm with you, Pete. I can't see it.
Actually, they're saying there's going to be 4 players back, and we're talking about there's going to be Sloan, Lynch, Laird, and one other.
Brown,
and Luke Brown. Will those 4 players come back? Well, Brownie, of course, has been playing until very recently, and the same applies to Lairdy, but and to Lynch. So you would think that you'd hope to get something out of them. Sloan, well, that's a totally different proposition. But and I know you said that we won't get much out of it, but they haven't missed that many games, and players at that level. They say Brown's not coming back.
I don't think Brown will be back.
And we've just lost bets.
And to be honest with you, Macca, I don't think we'll see Lairdy back either.
Jesus,
I've heard some word that break is a little bit more difficult than was originally performed.
Well, if you're throwing around stuff like that, you're saying that the club hasn't been completely honest with us about the severity of the injury. Yeah, that's a pretty big accusation.
It is a big accusation. There's no history to back me up on that one. I mean, God, I'm just plucking that out of my ass.
Can I just quickly jump in and say something to PJ Crows? I love your work, mate, and I could not agree with you more. That little post you put up about the list of 200 gamers that you get at the best clubs, and just taking that one step further. If you look, in years gone by when we had 2 big cups sitting in the cabinet, you look at the 200 gamers that would have photos up in the club. With Rashudo, McLeod, Hart, Smart, Edwards, all of those guys. You look at the last few 200 gamers from, you look at Dougie and you look at D-Mac, who'll clock up 200, Brent Riley, who clocked up 200, VB, who clocked up 200. It's not quite in the same category, is it? Anyway.
They're all blokes. They're all blokes you'd let you take your sister to the dance. They'd get them home and take you back, but you know nothing can happen along the
way. How many 200 gamers do you reckon have got the amount of Brownlow votes that Dave McKay's got?
Oh, you throw Dougie in as well. How many has he got?
I don't know. Might have got a few in his club champion year.
I take it one step further and say how many 200 gamers have got as many sub 20 possession games?
Yeah,
Anyway.
Yeah, look, not much more to talk about there. Should we move on to some competitions?
Go.
Go on, press the button.
Donkey Magoo.
There we go. Look, big apologies to Peanut. I did promise I'd do a roast the other week, but it was actually just a bit too depressing to sit down and look through it all. I will kick it off with our results from last week. The Dreamboats went down to mixed spot. Oh, no, that's not last week.
Come on, mate.
You've had a week to prepare for this.
I've gone down to I've gone down to Dillon FCC. For some reason, it is not giving me the. Oh, there we go. What else we got here? Mick Spuds knocked off second week with Peter. Richie has knocked off, or Peanut has knocked off habanero hot sauce. Big Crows Bangers have come through with a win. I know I've read that wrong. Gone down by 500 points.
I was going to say, I didn't change my team, so I don't know how I fucking won.
No, you didn't. You sucked again. DIY Pain Surgery went down to Barachos. Monkey Slappers went down to Coodabbeans. Newbie Kimber went down to Skid Kids. Shuey got even less than you and went down to Pete's Pirates. And he's making Phoenix look good since round one. And Sanders took good care of Azza. That brings us to the ladder, and I'll try and do this as quickly as humanly possible because I know how upset Dogs gets when we talk about the footy.
Come on, mate.
So we've got. I could do this really fast if we need. We've got Dillon FCC on number 1 with 40 points. Wheat Peter with 40 on the second spot. Winter March coming into 36. And last place, or fourth as we're going to now, is on 36 points with Corey with 1 win wonders. And then we jump across to the tipping. I got 3 this round, so this is all just very depressing, really. And where are we? Where's it gone? I've lost it. There we go. Sorry for we'll just play a little musical interlude while Dummy humps and the stuff comes up. Here we go. J-Mac is on top of the pop still on 78. Got 5 last round. Dom, he got 5 as well last round on 76 in second. B Short got 3 last round on 75. And Cellar Dwellers on 3 last week and 75. Moyley, we don't normally call 5th, but we call him because he's on the chat listening to us tonight. Moyley actually got 6 last week, so well done, mate. Although it does mean he's tipped without integrity. And you've got he's on 75 as well. Our crowcasting tipsters are all in a bit of trouble here. Donkey is in 11th spot on 68. Peter J coming just behind on 65. Phoenix just behind him on 63. And Macca decided he didn't want to play with us. So that is the update. Did I just get timed out? Jeez.
I was just going to ask you, Doug, are you still working as a newsreader on the radio up there in Darwin?
I thought he was calling the races or something the way he went through the bloody fantasy footy. It was awesome.
I was trying to do that. That was what I was aiming for. I can put on a very good radio voice. I can do the weather in Darwin. It's fine and cloudy with a top of 32.
The only problem with all of that is it's fantastic to hear Donk so quick, but then you spend 3 minutes talking about how quick he was.
Yeah. Sound like my wife, Pete.
It's like after the event pillow talk, isn't it? It's like fuck, I was good then. Bloody hell.
Well, you guys actually don't understand how good I actually am.
Speaking of good, I was so good last week that I forgot to give people a Game of Crows bloody thing. So Game of Crows is really quick this week because we didn't do it.
Well, no one won a stat last week, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I was going to say. So, and obviously the bye this week, so a chance for all of us to reset, have a look at our football departments, maybe have a bit of a massage and rejig our fitness regime and come back for Game of Crows next week. Macca, give us some sweets and smacks, would you?
I am a grumpy old man, that's what I am, and I really don't care who knows it.
Well, the obvious sweep for me for the week goes to Hayden Crozier, playing for the Bulldogs, and Port Adelaide had organised for their crowd to what if you could call that a crowd to clap at the 13-minute mark to as a mark of respect for young Todd Marshall, who wears number 13 and now lost both his parents and a very young lad. And it's a horrible thing to happen to him. And Hayden Crozier's gesture in walking up to his opponent, you could see his opponent was tearing up, and he walked up and gave him sort of a little bit of a consoling little pat on the back.
Yeah, it was really good.
And it's one. And then, as you should in football, then went on to give him a good hiding in terms of the football. But a real sweet to the guy for showing the humanity at that particular point.
Yep.
But the smack, well, we've pretty well covered it in terms of where I was going to go to. Pete raised it, and I had two. Dustin Martin, fancy him getting fined for what he did. He gave a pretty hefty bloody elbow to that umpire, and I'd love to have done it myself. But that's not the point. I mean, people who've just gone there and touched him, umpires have gone, just laid a little finger on him. Have got a game. And Dustin Martin, because he's buddy Dustin Martin, and because he plays for Richmond, he gets a fine. It's the one he didn't get a bloody cheque paid to him. As for the rest of the Adelaide Football Club, basket case. The club we've gone from being a very, very proud club to being a bit of a laughing stock, a bit of a shambles, and the media use us as the butt of all their comments and jokes, and it's all self-inflicted, and it's very, very hurtful to be a member of a club that's doing that. And then particularly when you see that the club down the road that was the basket case in Port Adelaide, they had a review. They went right through their whole lineup from top to bottom, and they cleaned it out, and they put in the right people in the right positions, and they are actually growing as a club in terms of the way they held in the whole competition. They're regarded as a football club. They're regarded now as a destination of choice, etc., etc. And it really pisses me off to see that basket case that they were being regarded in much more esteem than we are. And Adelaide Football Club, just get your bloody act together, clean out the rubbish you've got there, put the right people in the right spots, and we might get some decent results and get back to where we should be.
Yeah, and also, for God's sake, stop being so insular and actually become the team for all South Australians and open up the fucking doors and stop being so secretive about everything.
Not just the team for ex-players.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, sorry, I did leave that point out. That's one of the points I was going to raise. There's clean out some... Oh. It really looks like...
No, you got cut.
Jobs for the boys.
Come on, Mackie, you can't have two cracks at it.
I just hate. I'm really, really angry, mate.
Anyway, that's it. We're done.
We're done.
Thanks,
good
guys.
Luck with Socceroos tomorrow night.
Yeah, good luck to Socceroos. Don't forget Twitter and Facebook at AFL CrowCast. If you're listening to us on iTunes, give us a rating and a like or a comment. Next, no wrap this weekend. See you next Tuesday. Thanks everyone on the chat, and see you later on.
See you all.
See ya.
Good night, all.